This happened a few years ago. I was 32 at the time. I wanted to take a break from my busy city life, so I decided to spend a weekend at my grandparents' cabin in the mountains. I hoped the quiet would help me with my work as a freelance graphic designer. I never stopped thinking about that weekend. The cabin sat in a thick blanket of snow, surrounded by tall evergreens. It felt peaceful as I stepped inside. The wood paneling and old furniture welcomed me. A faint pine scent filled the air, and I felt good to be away from distractions. I settled in. But as night fell, the weather turned worse. I didn't think much of it at first. That night, a heavy snowstorm hit. The wind howled outside, and I curled up with a book. Then I heard a tapping sound. I thought it was just branches hitting the window. But when the noise kept going, I started to feel uneasy. I stopped reading and listened. Maybe I was just being paranoid. I was alone in that big cabin. The next day, the storm was still raging, and I decided to go outside. I opened the door and stepped into the cold. That's when I saw footprints in the snow. They looked too small to be from an adult. I stared at them, feeling confused. My mind raced, but I forced myself to think it was nothing. After a brief look, I went back inside, shaking off the chills creeping up my spine. Once I was warm again by the fireplace, I noticed something strange. The furniture seemed to have moved a little. I was sure I hadn't touched anything since I arrived. My stomach flipped. I thought maybe I was imagining things. Later that night, with the storm still going strong, I heard soft humming. It echoed through the walls. I felt a chill run down my back. I was alone, or so I thought. It was a soft, melodic tune that felt unsettling. As I started to pack my things the next morning, I stumbled upon a small toy on the floor. I didn't recognize it. It looked like something a child would play with, but it wasn't mine. That made my heart race. I wanted to leave quickly. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there with me. I turned to leave, feeling uneasy. I hoped it was just the wind. But then I heard a childlike giggle behind me. My body froze. I wanted to call out, but the words wouldn't come. I quickly glanced around the room but saw nothing. I was completely alone, or so I thought. I took one last look at the cabin. A cold breeze brushed past me, making the hairs on my arms stand up. I felt dread wash over me. What had really happened that weekend? I never understood those odd experiences. Each one left me with more questions than answers. The memories still haunt me to this day. I drove away from the cabin, the tires crunching on the snow-covered gravel, as I felt a mix of relief and fear. The memory of that giggle echoed in my mind. I had always thought I was a rational person, but now I questioned everything I believed about what I could see and hear. As I navigated the narrow roads winding through the mountains, I tried to push the unsettling experiences from that weekend out of my head. But I couldn't. The landscape was different now, blanketed in white, but somehow it felt more ominous. The trees closed in around me like sentinels, watching. Once I was home, I tried to distract myself with work. I sat at my desk, staring at my graphics tablet. But the images in my mind were of tiny footprints in the snow and a child's laughter that shouldn't have belonged to the empty cabin. I couldn't focus on clients or concepts. I kept glancing out the window, half expecting to see a figure in the snow. Days turned into weeks, and I thought about that cabin more than I cared to admit. I felt the need to return and understand what had really happened. So, I made plans for another trip back, not telling anyone. I needed to face those memories, not let them consume me. When I arrived at the cabin, it was eerily quiet. The snow had settled, and everything felt frozen in time. I pushed the door open, and a chill washed over me. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the distant sound of wind through the trees. I stepped inside, heart pounding, ready to confront whatever strange occurrences awaited me. I searched room by room, looking for the toy I had seen. I hoped to find some clue as to why it was there, but it was gone. I checked every corner and opened every cabinet, but there was nothing unusual. I felt a sense of disappointment wash over me. Maybe it was all just a trick of my mind. That night, the storm returned, but it was different. The wind rustled the trees outside, and I settled by the fireplace, hot chocolate in hand. Suddenly, I heard it again, the soft, melodic humming. My blood ran cold. It came from deeper in the cabin, echoing off the walls. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself it was just the wind. But when the humming grew louder, I knew it wasn't. I stood up slowly, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The sound was unnerving, like a call beckoning me. I had to investigate. With each step toward the sound, my heart raced. I forced myself to breathe deeply, pushing past the rising panic. I crept down the hallway, following the noise until I reached the source. It was coming from the small room at the end, my grandparents' old storage space. My hand hesitated on the door handle. I took a deep breath before turning it slowly. The door creaked loudly, and in that moment, everything went dark. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice sounded small in the emptiness. The humming stopped. I felt a presence wash over me, a coldness that seeped into my bones. I didn't know what awaited me in the darkness. I had to know the truth, even if it terrified me. I blinked, adjusting to the sudden darkness. Panic surged through me, and I fumbled for my phone in my pocket, praying the screen would light up. When I finally managed to switch it on, the dim glow did little to cut through the shadows. My heart raced in my chest as I stepped over the threshold into the storage room. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. I scanned the space, illuminated by the weak beam of my phone. Boxes stacked haphazardly loomed like figures in the gloom, and cobwebs hung from the rafters like forgotten dreams. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the pull of the humming had a grip on me. As I moved deeper, something caught my eye. A small doll lay on the floor, half hidden beneath an old blanket. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized it as the same toy I had seen before. How had it ended up here? I crouched to pick it up, and as I did, the humming returned. More insistent, more urgent. "Why?" I whispered to the darkness. I felt as though I was being answered, but the only sound that met me was the soft rustling of the wind outside. The doll felt cold in my hands, as if it had been left in the snow for hours. I turned it to examine its worn face. It seemed oddly familiar, its glassy eyes staring back. Just then, a sharp noise echoed from the corner of the room, a scraping sound that made my skin crawl. I whipped around, heart pounding, shining my phone into the darkness. My breath quickened as I sought out the source. I felt something. A presence, a shadow that danced just out of reach. "Who's there?" I called half-heartedly. My voice quivered. The wind howled louder, rattling the cabin as if it was alive and answering me. I stepped back, clutching the doll to my chest, when I heard it. A soft giggle, unmistakable. It rang clear in the air, playful and taunting. I froze, fear closing in around me. It was then that I saw it. A figure, small and fleeting, darted across the room's far wall before disappearing into the dark recesses. My heart skipped a beat. I stumbled backward, wishing I could escape the room and its mysteries that now felt so alive. "No! Get back here!" I shouted, though I wasn't even sure what I was trying to catch. The laughter faded, leaving an echo that felt heavy on my shoulders. I hesitated, torn between curiosity and the instinct to run. There was something deeply unsettling about the laughter. It was familiar, yet foreign. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as the doll's eyes glinted in the light, and I realized I wasn't alone. A sudden crash interrupted my thoughts. It came from the living room, loud enough to send me sprinting out of the storage room, heart racing. I stumbled into the hallway. The shadows loomed larger, and the silence felt thick with unspoken tension. I reached the living room, breathless. Everything appeared untouched, but I could feel the weight of something shifting in the air. That's when I saw it. A small, glinting object resting in the middle of the floor, catching the faint light. I knelt to examine it, dread twisted in my gut. It looked like a locket, cold metal with intricate designs, and it was open. Inside, there were 2 photographs, faces both hauntingly familiar. One was of myself as a child, and the other, well, it was a little girl with a smile that mirrored the laughter I had just heard. My heart sank. I swallowed hard. What was happening here? And why was I being pulled into a past I couldn't remember? Then the laughter returned, echoing around me. I clutched the locket tightly, dread flooding my senses as the cabin seemed to come alive, ready to tell me a story I was not prepared to hear. I stood frozen in the living room, the locket heavy in my palm. The laughter seemed to wrap around me, drawing closer. Yet I felt utterly alone. The soft glint of the locket caught my attention again, and before I could think, I flipped it over. There was an inscription on the back. My heart raced as I read it aloud. To my dearest Emily, forever in my heart. I had never been called Emily. Who was this little girl? Why did her laughter resonate so deeply within me? The cabin creaked, and I felt the air grow colder. I could hear the wind howl outside, echoing through the silence. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting the small figure to reappear, but nothing moved. The room felt eerily still, as though it were holding its breath. I picked myself up and quickly made my way to the front window. Snow fell thick and fast outside, covering the world in a blanket of white. The darkness beyond made it hard to see, but I could have sworn I saw something shift in the shadows just outside the glass. I squinted, but all I faced was the storm. My heart raced as I recalled the small figure dashing into the darkness back in the storage room. I took a deep breath and turned back to the living room. The locket was still clutched tightly in my hand. Another crash shattered the silence, this time coming from the kitchen. My pulse quickened. I hesitated, glancing back at the door to the storage room. "Get it together," I whispered to myself. I didn't want to be weak now. Whatever was happening, I needed to face it. With my phone flashlight leading the way, I stepped cautiously into the kitchen. The wreckage was a mess of fallen chairs and scattered utensils. A drawer had flung open, sending its contents onto the floor in a chaotic pile. As I surveyed the disruption, I noticed a piece of paper fluttering under a chair. My breath caught as I recognized familiar handwriting. It was my childhood writing. I knelt to pick it up, revealing a note addressed to myself. It read, "I know you're scared, but I'm waiting for you. Come find me." My fingers trembled as I read the words over and over. Who had written this, and how did it end up here? The laughter erupted again, now sounding more urgent, more demanding. It filled my ears, swirling around the room like a tangible force. I could no longer pretend it was just my imagination. Suddenly the lights flickered, then went out completely, plunging me into thick darkness. The shadows deepened, and I felt corners of the room closing in, squeezing the air from my lungs. Panic surged. I raised my phone to find the light, but the screen flickered ominously. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps padding across the floor, light as a feather, heading straight for me. I opened my mouth to shout, but nothing came out. The laughter echoed, childlike and haunting, as the presence drew closer. Before I could gather the courage to bolt, a small figure emerged from the darkness, its form barely illuminated by my phone's dying light. It stood there, just beyond reach, silhouetted against the shadows. I could see its familiar smile, wide and welcoming. For a brief moment, everything felt eerily calm. "Emily," it whispered, as if I was supposed to know who she was. And then she stepped closer, the laughter fading into a chilling silence that engulfed the room. That's when I realized, whatever this was, I was going to have to confront it head-on. But I had no idea how. I blinked, still processing the sight of the figure before me. My heart thundered as I fought the instinct to flee. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely a breath. The girl remained silent, her smile unwavering. The moment stretched, her gaze piercing through me as if she were searching for something buried deep within. I felt a strange pull, an emotion that balanced on the edge of fear and familiarity. "Emily," she said again, this time with a hint of urgency. The way she spoke my name sent chills down my spine. I didn't even know this girl, yet something about her felt inexplicably close. "Do I know you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. A distant memory flickered in the back of my mind, but just out of reach. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker back to life, illuminating the kitchen once more. She flinched at the brightness, an almost pained expression crossing her face. Panic surged through me as I realized the light might send her away. "Wait, please, don't go." The words escaped me before I could stop them. I took a step forward, but she melted back into shadows with a swift, fluid motion, her laughter morphing into an echo that bounced off the walls, deceptive and haunting. With the lights now fully restored, The room looked normal again, littered with debris from the earlier chaos. But I felt anything but stable. I glanced at the note in my hand, gripping it tighter as if it could ground me. "Come find me." Those words burned in my memory. I needed to understand. Against my better judgment, I made my way back to the storage room, the last place I'd seen her. The door creaked open, revealing the dim space filled with boxes stacked high. The air felt heavy, as if it recognized what had passed through here. I shone the flashlight around, searching for any clue that could explain what was happening. As I rifled through the boxes, my fingers brushed against a dusty photo album. I pulled it out, my heart pounding. I flipped it open, revealing a collection of faded images. There were pictures of my childhood, family gatherings, and moments I thought I had forgotten. My hands froze when I spotted a familiar face, my own, smiling beside a little girl, her arms slung around my shoulders. It was the same girl, the same smile. "What is this?" I whispered, unease creeping in again. Just then, I heard it. A scraping sound from the far corner of the room. I turned my head sharply, the flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. My heart raced as I projected a calm I didn't feel. I took a cautious step towards the sound, every instinct screaming at me to leave. But I was too deep, and my curiosity won out. "Who's there?" I called, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. Silence met my question. Then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I blinked, and the figure darted past the doorway. My breath hitched. I wasn't going to let fear hold me back anymore. I rushed after the escapee, slipping on the winter coat and boots at the entrance. As I stumbled out into the storm, I felt a sense of resolve. Whatever laid ahead, I was ready to confront it. But then everything went dark again. The wind howled louder, devouring any sound I made, and I was left alone in the white void. The weight of the moment settled on me like a thick fog. I had to find her. There was something I needed to know, even if it meant unraveling the truth behind the storm. The storm raged around me as I stumbled forward, the snow blowing in my face like 1,000 tiny needles. I strained to see through the frigid white, feeling completely disoriented. No more shadows, no more laughter. Just the roar of the wind, drowning everything else. "Emily!" I shouted, hoping against hope she would answer. But only the storm responded, swallowing my voice whole. Panic gnawed at my insides. I hadn't planned on being out here alone, not like this. The realization hit me hard. What if I couldn't find her again? I pressed on, my resolve wavering under the fierce onslaught of nature. Each step felt like wading through a thick fog, and my surroundings blurred into a chaotic swirl. But then, just beyond the tree line, I caught a glimpse of movement. A flash of white teasing through the blizzard, almost like a figure drifting in and out of existence. I squinted, hoping my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. "Emily!" I cried out again, voice cracking from the cold. This time, there was a response, a soft giggle, faint but clear, echoing into the night air. My heart skipped a beat. Following the sound, I plunged forward, adrenaline fueling my every step. I crashed through the drifts, barely registering the cold seeping through my boots. The ghostly figure, if it was even real, beckoned me deeper into the forest. Then I saw it, the cabin, my grandparents' old wooden structure that had been a second home during my childhood. It stood there just as I remembered, though the storm had transformed its familiar outline into something strange and foreboding. The door creaked open slightly, as if waiting for me. "Emily?" I called again, stepping onto the porch. An odd sensation washed over me. The air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. The giggle had stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. I hesitated at the threshold, the memories of laughter and family warmth battling against the chilling unknown that lay inside. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cabin was dark, the only light coming from the storm outside. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the room. The furniture sat untouched, and the fireplace was cold. But something felt different. Then I noticed the wall, covered with photographs. Each framed picture looked familiar, but as I stepped closer, recognition twisted into confusion. The images showed all of my childhood visits, but there was a presence in everyone. A girl with dark hair and a mischievous grin, always just behind me or next to me. It was her. "Why?" I whispered, realizing with dread that I had forgotten her. Why had I pushed away those memories? My fingers brushed against the frames, but the air grew heavier around me. I felt a sudden chill, as if she were standing in the room with me. Then, just as quickly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. A whisper flooded the room, soft and sweet. "Come find me, Emily." It echoed like a haunting lullaby, leaving a sense of urgency swirling within me. I was terrified but compelled. I had to understand who she was and why she was here. But the shadows of the cabin seemed to shift, tightening around me, and I realized I wasn't alone. Something moved behind me, a presence lingering just out of sight. My breath caught. Instinctively I turned, but there was only darkness. The whisper returned, a soft plea. "Find me." My mind raced as I braced myself for whatever lay ahead. I had to confront the truth, and now it felt closer than ever. But something out there wanted me to uncover it. I had no idea what I was getting into. The silence was thick, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I stood frozen, my heartbeat loud enough to drown out the whisper. It felt like the cabin was breathing, exhaling secrets. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. "Emily," I whispered, my voice wavering. I resisted the urge to move, not wanting to invite whatever lurked in the darkness. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the back of the cabin. I flinched, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Someone's here," I murmured, though the thought terrified me. I had to find Emily. I couldn't shake the connection I felt with her, like some unseen thread was tying us together. My gut told me she must be nearby. Carefully, I inched toward the back of the cabin, every creak of the floorboard sending chills down my spine. The flickering memory of her giggle echoed in my mind, urging me forward. I reached the narrow hallway, where the faint outline of a door loomed at the end. Taking a deep breath, I approached. The door was slightly ajar, and the air that wafted through was colder than the rest of the cabin. I pushed it open and stepped inside. It was a small room, filled with old mementos and faded antiques. Dust motes floated in the dim light, giving the space an eerie glow. As I scanned the room, I noticed something on the floor. An old doll, its dress torn and hair matted. My heart sank. I hadn't seen this doll since I was little. It had always belonged to Emily. Why was it here? And why did it feel like a piece of a puzzle I wasn't ready to solve? I picked it up, the worn fabric crumbling slightly in my hands. Just then, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, whirling around to face the locked exit. Panic surged within me as I rattled the doorknob. "Let me out!" I shouted, pounding my fists against the wood. The cabin felt alive, suffocating me with its intimacy. But instead of fear, a feeling of calm washed over me. I closed my eyes for a moment, my breaths coming more steadily. I remembered why I was here. I needed to find Emily. I needed answers. Suddenly, there was a soft knocking on the door. My stomach twisted. "Emily?" I called out hesitantly. The knocking continued, steady, deliberate. A chill ran up my spine, but my curiosity outweighed my fear. "Open the door!" a child's voice rang out. It sounded like her. My hands trembled as I reached for the knob. But just before I could turn it, it twisted open on its own. The doorway framed a figure wrapped in shadows. "It's time," she whispered, her voice echoing like a distant bell. I stepped back, heart racing. Time for what? Her smile flickered in and out of existence, and the room felt smaller. "To remember," she said. Before I could process the meaning, the floor tremored beneath me. A guttural growl echoed from the depths of the cabin, shaking the walls. The atmosphere shifted from eerie calm to overwhelming dread. I stumbled back, glancing between the shadowy figure of Emily and the threat that lurked beyond the walls. "What's happening?" I gasped, fear clawing at my throat. "Come find me," she urged again. And I realized she was fading. But whatever was emerging didn't care about my past. It had a different agenda. Then, with a sudden crash, darkness erupted from the corners of the room, drowning out everything. I was engulfed, Thrown into chaos, I had only seconds to decide: face the darkness or chase the child. But one thing was certain. I was in way over my head. I stumbled backward, the old doll slipping from my grasp and hitting the floor with a soft thud. The room around me began to close in, shadows swirling like thick fog. I forced my feet to move, struggling to remember what Emily had said. "Come find me." At that moment, I had no idea where I was going. I swiveled toward the door, but the shadow of Emily stood firm, as if she was blocking my way. Her outline flickered, and a sense of urgency washed over me. "You have to lead me, Emily," I urged, reaching for her. "Not here," she replied, her voice softer now, almost pleading. The growl from the depths of the cabin rumbled again, and I felt the ground beneath me shake. I had to act. With a surge of determination, I pushed past the figure and crashed through the door. The hallway stretched out before me, dark and uninviting. The growling grew louder, clawing at my resolve. I didn't know what was behind me, but I could feel its presence, heavy and menacing. I darted down the hallway, heart racing. Each step echoed in the wooden beams, blending with my panicked breaths. I thought of Emily and how desperate I was to bring her back. "Where are you?" I whispered. The only answer was the low hum of the cabin's ancient walls. I reached the end of the hall where another door stood, a larger door with worn metal handles. As I grasped the cool surface, I hesitated. What if I opened this door, and whatever I found was worse than what was behind me? What if you don't find her at all? I thought, the doubt creeping back in. But Emily's face lingered in my mind, her smile encouraging me. There was no time for fear. I pulled the door open, the hinges creaking in protest. The room beyond was dimly lit, filled with old furniture and boxes piled high like forgotten memories. Then I spotted it. A flash of color in the corner caught my eye. I walked closer, and my breath hitched. It was a hand-painted box, its lid adorned with flowers. My heart raced as I recognized it. It had been Emily's treasure chest when we were kids. I opened it, the hinges groaning like a lamenting spirit. Inside lay the trinkets we used to share: bits of rope, a tiny key, and, surprisingly, a stack of photos. I hesitated, then reached for the photos. My fingers trembled as I flipped through them. Images of us laughing, making silly faces, and playing in the snow surfaced. But then my heartbeat quickened. One photo stood out, a picture of Emily with a strange figure lurking behind her. The edges of the image were frayed, but the figure was unmistakably there, half-hidden yet staring straight at the camera. A chill ran down my spine. I couldn't ignore the feeling that somehow this was connected to everything happening now. Just as I began to piece it together, the growling intensified, pushing me closer to the edge of panic. Suddenly, the box flew from my hands, slamming shut as a force swept through the room, rattling it. I staggered back, and that's when I saw him. The shadow took shape. It hovered in the doorway, relentless and insatiable. "Run!" A voice echoed inside my mind, breaking through the terror. It was Emily's voice, yet distant. Without thinking, I turned and bolted back into the hallway, the darkness trailing me. I couldn't look back, but I could feel its breath on my neck. I had to find Emily. I had to discover the truth. But as I raced away, a thought struck me. If that figure was in the picture, who was I really running from? I sprinted down the hallway, my mind racing. I had to keep moving. Stopping felt like an invitation for the shadow to catch up. The growl bounced off the walls, sounding closer, deeper, more menacing. I didn't know how much longer I could keep this up. Ahead, another door loomed. This one wasn't like the others. Its frame was adorned with intricate carvings. I hesitated for a moment, my instincts warning me. But my need to escape outweighed my apprehension. I pushed the door open and stumbled inside. The room was filled with dust and cobwebs, the air thick and stale. A single window allowed a sliver of moonlight to break through, illuminating an array of old, mismatched furniture. In the far corner, a mirror caught my eye, its surface cracked but still reflecting the dim light. I approached it cautiously. Something about the mirror felt wrong. I looked closer and my heart dropped. The reflection showed me standing in the room, but behind me stood the shadowy figure, looming larger and more defined. I gasped and spun around, expecting to confront it, but the room was empty. "Okay, focus," I whispered to myself, glancing back at the mirror. Was it real? or just a trick of the mind. As I took a step back, the shadow flickered again in the mirror, closer this time. Panic surged through me. "What do you want?" I shouted, not expecting an answer. A cold breeze swept through the room, sending chills through my body. I stumbled backward, bumping into a small table that nearly toppled over. I needed to find Emily. I needed to know if she was safe. Somehow, I was sure the answer lay within this house. Just as I regained my balance, something crunched beneath my foot. I glanced down and my breath quickened. It was another photo, this one torn and weathered. I knelt to pick it up, revealing an image of a house, this very cabin, but in pristine condition. In the foreground stood a group of children, including Emily. They were smiling and playing, completely unaware of the shadowy figure lurking in the background. I felt a sudden flare of hope mixed with dread. "If they were here," I mumbled. "Maybe there's a way to reach her." But the growling grew louder, rumbling like thunder. I shot to my feet, clutching the photo tightly. I needed to find a way out, a way to break whatever hold this cabin had on us. In that moment of clarity, I noticed a staircase at the far side of the room, hidden behind a dust-laden curtain. "Go!" I shouted at myself, willing my legs to move. I dashed toward the staircase, pulling the curtain aside with urgency. The shadows around me shifted, as if they were alive. I could feel their frustration, their anger. Just as I reached the top of the steps, a deafening crash echoed from behind me. The loud noise sent me flying forward, plunging into darkness. I hit the floor hard, the air knocked from my lungs. Gasping for breath, I looked around, trying to regain my bearings. "Emily!" I called out, knowing I had to keep searching. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized I wasn't alone. Someone was standing at the far end of the room, and my heart dropped. I had finally found her. But then I remembered the shadow and a cold dread washed over me. "Emily?" I asked, voice trembling. And the figure turned slowly. The girl looked just like Emily. Her dark hair fell in soft curls, and her familiar smile spread across her face, pulling at my heartstrings. But there was an edge to her expression, something ethereal, as if she existed in both this moment and another plane altogether. "Emily!" I rushed forward, the overwhelming urge to hold her, to protect her, flooding my thoughts. "Where have you been?" she giggled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "I've always been here. You just forgot." Her eyes sparkled with mischief, yet they held a sorrow I couldn't comprehend. "Forgot? What do you mean? Why did you lead me here?" I felt a surge of desperation. The anguish of our past tugged at my heart, the memories of shared afternoons, laughter, and secrets long buried. Her smile faded, replaced by a wistful gaze. "We were close once. But you moved on, and well, I couldn't." The shadows behind her shifted, and I glanced over my shoulder just as a deeper growl resonated from the depths of the cabin, a sound that demanded attention. "Please, you have to come with me," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "Whatever that is." I pointed to the ominous shadows creeping along the walls. "It's hunting you and me too. We can't stay." She took a step back, and the energy in the air shifted. "You can choose to forget again," she said softly. "It's easier that way." "No." I took another step toward her, ready to close the distance that felt like miles. "I won't lose you again. I need to remember. We need to face whatever this is." As I reached for her, a surge of darkness rolled over the room, swallowing the light. I turned to the encroaching shadows, but they shifted, morphing into a childlike shape, embodying not just menace but also the echoes of a childhood left behind. "Come find me," it whispered, the echo of a familiar voice entwined with the shadows. The warning felt like a cold slap, reverberating with the weight of forgotten memories. "Emily!" I shouted above the tumult, feeling the ground shake beneath me. She trembled, the shadows playing tricks, teasing the boundaries of her fragile presence. "Stay with me. We need to break this together." I can't," she repeated, her voice warped by sorrow. She glanced behind her, and I saw fear flash in her eyes. I understood it now. The shadows were part of her too, a piece of a past she was unwilling to confront. Please! I fought through the chaos. What do I have to do? With a somber expression, she stepped back further, fading just beyond my reach. You have to remember who you are to find me, she whispered, sliding further into the shadows. You must open your heart and face the truth. Wait! But she was lost in the darkness, her silhouette vanishing like a fleeting memory. I fell to my knees, the weight of loss crashing over me. Emily! I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the growling that resonated from the shadows. As panic surged through my veins, I realized that I had one last choice to make: to abandon the past and run, or to confront whatever lay hidden beneath the layers of shadowy dread. Gathering my strength, I stood. I will find you, no matter what, I declared into the dark space of the cabin, defiance igniting my spirit. Clenching the photo of us, I turned toward the shadows that threatened to consume me. I took a deep breath. I'm coming, Emily. I stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever truth awaited, unsure if I truly understood what that meant. In that moment, I was both terrified and liberated, ready to surrender to the darkness, knowing that whatever transformed would leave me changed. My spirit was willing, and the answer awaited me on the other side. And then everything shifted, swirling around me like a kaleidoscope of forgotten memories and whispers that danced just beyond my grasp. Whatever lay ahead was a mystery yet to be unraveled, lingering threads of the past teasing at my consciousness, leaving me hopelessly searching, still unsure, still hopeful, and still lost, in both the light and the dark.